All right, let's, I hope that works. Bada bing, bada boom, and we have that. Wow. Oh yeah, Lisa joined. Yeah. Now, hey everybody. SJ, if you want to start telling them, maybe what we're going to go over with today while I'm sharing links and introduce
So,
yourself, that'd be awesome.
so hi. For those of you that don't know, my name's SJ. I'm the founder of Divi Space. Hopefully, some of you have caught a couple of our previous webinars. What we're going to be doing today is going through um, 3 or 4 different code snippets that we will share with you in the comments that are going to help you differentiate um, your header. So in Divi, as I'm sure you know, there are loads and loads of layout packs and things like that that can very quickly help you get a website up and running. But one area that tends to always look like it's Divi is the header. And that's just because of the way the header works and the fact that it uses a theme customizer. I can almost always go onto a website and say that's Divi. And the reason that I can do that is because of the header. So what we're going to show you today is a couple of different things that you can do to differentiate your site's header from others. And when we're talking about header here, we are literally talking about the top bar with the menu and the logo. We're not talking about kind of the larger header, i.e. what's visible on screen when you first click onto a site. We're talking about the top header. We're going to go through 2 different styles for the new Juice Shop layout pack from Elegant Themes, and we're going to do 2 other small adjustments using jQuery that will help you differentiate your website from everybody else's. So stay tuned, it's going to be a good one. I think we're kind of ready to go, or should we wait?
Yeah, give me one more minute. We are almost ready to go. I am posting, and I want to give these people in the group opportunities to join as well. And I think I realized something. For people who have signed up for the event that we've set up in Facebook, I know that it's not synced with our Zoom webinars. And I'm looking into right now a way to sync it because we're going live from Zoom. And what that does is it's not actually using the same URL that is actually scheduled in the webinar. So, I mean, in the event on Facebook. So what I'm doing is I'm posting this link onto the Divi Space webinar right now, just so that you can join and stuff. So, and then I think we're about ready to go, SJ. I'm just going to say a quick, hey, stop drinking Diet Coke and have a sup of Rosie Lee, SJ. I'm assuming you saw that already. I am going to introduce myself, David Blackman with Aspen Grove Studios and Divi Space. And it's an honor always to be here, and we've really enjoyed doing these webinars and stuff. And it's although I'm not the developer-y mind, I am a developer-y mind. I'm just not a developer. I have learned a lot, so being a person where that's not my focus and being able to take what SJ's been teaching and stuff and understand what's going on makes me really understand how great of a teacher he really is and stuff. So I'm awesome. Let's go, SJ. Everybody on Facebook, welcome. Hi, Kathy, David, Elster, Stephanie, Pablo, all the usual
Hey
insane
everyone.
maniacs. Let's get started.
Okay, so the first thing I guess I should share my screen first.
Yeah, go ahead. Share your
Let's
screen. And you
do
may see
that.
me walking in and out, and but I've got my AirPods on so I can hear everything that's going on. So
Okay, so if you could just let me know when you can see my screen.
it is loading and we can see it.
Okay, cool. So we're going to walk through a couple of different header designs today. The first one that we're going to do is just to jazz up the menu in our header. So what I've done here beforehand is I've quickly loaded the new Juice Shop landing page layout from Elegant Themes onto a page. And I've just adjusted a couple of the customizer settings. I've changed the color on scroll, or the fixed header settings, to white. I've made the standard header transparent. And that's pretty much all I've done. I've also made the menu area full width. But those are the only adjustments that I've made beforehand. So everything that we do from here on is custom CSS. So what I'm essentially going to show you how to do at the moment is when we hover over these items, we're going to create this nice color drop down that happens behind the links. And it's going to really tie in the menu with the page design rather than it looking like the whole page has been designed lovely and then the header's just kind of been ignored. So the first thing that we're going to do, and I should point out that in the Transforming Divi with CSS and jQuery course, this week one of the lessons has been on pseudo elements and classes. So throughout this webinar, there is going to be a focus on using pseudo elements to create new and wonderful effects. So just so you know that, and to any students that are watching. So the first thing that we're going to do then is we're going to inspect the element here. Where's my...
Oh, we got some Elegant Theme celebrities in the house, SJ. Just no pressure, no pressure.
Who have we got watching?
Augustine Mack, who does great Divi and video tutorials as well.
The demo master himself.
The demo master himself.
Okay, so what we've done there, we've clicked on the menu item and we're just going to grab the selector that was being used there, which was top menu A. We're going to open up our StyleBot. If you haven't already got StyleBot installed, you should, because it's cool and it's helpful. So we're going to do top menu A, and then we're going to use before, and then we're going to create an element that sits behind our link. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're just going to create an empty content property. So a content property allows you to add content either before or after using the before and after. So if I just type in hello there, you can see that the word hello has been put in front of all of our links. So that's how the content property works. But we're going to leave it blank because we're actually just using it to create an element of color rather than content. We're going to position it absolute. For now, we're just going to put top 0, left 0, width 100%, height 100%, background. I'm going to keep it very simple for now. Background red. So you can see there that that's created this red background that actually sits in front. So we're just going to give it a Z index of -1, which is going to push it behind the content there. And then we're just going to make it look a bit prettier. So let's give it border radius 4 pixels. Okay, so that's all we're going to do for now. So now what we're going to do is we are going to change these new before pseudo elements and make them do some cool stuff on hover. So I'm going to change, just to give them a bit of padding, I'm just going to move it to -10 pixels on the left. And then the width, I'm going to use a calculation. So in CSS, we can use a calculation by typing calc, creating some brackets, and then doing our calculation in those brackets. So I'm going to make it 100% plus 20 pixels, which is going to allow for the 10 pixels that I've just moved it left and add 10 pixels to the right. So now we can see that that looks loads better. What I'm going to do now is adjust the height because I want it to be larger than that. You might ask why we're not just styling the link in this way, why we've had to create a before element. And the reason is because in a little while, I'm going to be asking this to act independently of the link, i.e. it's going to hide behind the top of the page at first, and then it's going to move down as and when I want it to show. So that's why we're not just attaching this to the link directly. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to transform it. So I don't know if you saw the promo video that I did earlier for this, but there was a nice kind of horizontal line here. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to use a transform property. So I'm going to put transform, and then I'm going to put skew, and then I'm going to add how much I want that to skew. So I want it to skew 20 degrees, let's say. And at the moment, that's gone with a skew that way. So skew is it's a 2D transformation. So it doesn't have perspective. It's just flat on the page. But I actually want it to skew along the y-axis. So I'm just going to add skew y rather than skew to that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that up a little bit. So instead of having the top as 0, I'm just going to have it as, let's do minus 50 for now, just to see where that goes. Okay, that's a good start. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some opposing effects on hover. So all I'm going to do there is I've copied everything from here, and then I'm going to copy it to here. And instead of on the before, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on hover before. So if you're using a pseudo class or element like before and you want to use hover, you have to put it before, not after. If you did these the other way around, it wouldn't work. So make sure that you get the syntax correct. The content isn't going to change, so I'm going to delete that line. The absolute positioning isn't going to change, so I can delete that line. The top is going to be less. So let's just do, so you can see there that those things now move. It's still clunky, but they move. And then the height is going to stay the same, I think. Or should we make it? Let's do a fixed height. So there we go. So that's why we've doubled up on our properties there, because we did do a fixed height, didn't we, of 120 pixels. So we can get rid of that first one. We actually don't need it on the second one. So the only things that you need to keep in this selector here are things that you're changing. So the -10 on the left is staying the same. The top has changed. The width is going to stay the same, so we can get rid of that. The background we can get rid of. Z-index 1 we can get rid of. And we can get rid of that. So let's see how this looks now. So I'm going to move this up more, maybe even more than that. Let's do 120. I'm going to take the skew off, and I'm going to keep moving that up just until the tips are showing. Okay, that's perfect. So I've just got the tops showing through now, and when I hover over, they obviously jump down, and that doesn't look great yet, but it's going to look pretty cool in a little while. So let's adjust this to, let's say, 60. Okay, that looks good now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a transition so that it just doesn't go from above to below really suddenly like that. So to do that, I'm just going to add transition, and then I'm going to add 1 second ease in and out, and I'm going to add that to all. So now that creates a much smoother transition between those two. So because the skew is 0 on the main element, and so it looks flat here, and as it grows, it creates that kind of point effect as it goes down, which I think looks quite nice. So what we're also going to do then is just grab our main selector there, and again target the hover and say color white, and I'm going to change the opacity as well there, because when you hover over on a link in your menu, the opacity changes. So let's inspect and we can see what's happening there. So if we click on hover here, then we can see the hover effects here. Bear with me, my computer's being really slow at the moment. Yeah, you can see there the opacity of that link is changing to 0.7, and it just creates this kind of faded color. So we're going to override that as well, and we're just going to have opacity 1. So that should fix that kind of dulled out color. There you go, it's much more vibrant. And I'm also just going to speed up that transition as well. So instead of 1 second, I'm just going to put it at 0.4. And that creates this nice drop down effect that we have here. Now at the moment they're all the same color. So what we're going to do here is we're going to adjust those colors. So we're again going to take this selector here, and we're going to move it down. And this time we're going to use the nth child pseudo class. So we're just going to put nth child 1. And then we're going to change the background. So you can see here that rather than just change the first link, it changed all of the links. And the reason is because actually every link element here is nth child 1 because it sits inside a list item. So what we actually have to do is we have to target the list item nth child 1 before, and now you can see just the first one's blue. So what we can then do is we can copy this and we can say let's just go in kind of an order. So we'll go red, copy that, five times, and then we're just going to go nth child 2, nth child 3, nth child 4, nth child 5. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a separate CSS selector for each of these links now, so we can style them differently. So just to show you what that looks like, I'm just going to put orange in there, yellow in there, let's go green, and then blue. So you can see very quickly there that all of these elements now have changed. And they've got this nice little drop down that happens when you hover over them. So we're just going to adjust the colors again. So because we want it to fit in with this layout pack, what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to look. So we're looking for a red color that's used somewhere in the design. So if we keep going down, bear with me. My page is just frozen. There we go, we're back. So we've got this vitamin B12 line here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inspect that. Sorry, for some reason this is just lagging hard. I think it's because of the videoing. Yeah, so we're going to inspect that. And we're going to grab that color, and where we've used red just as our placeholder, we're going to adjust that for each of the items. So now we've got the red. So I can go through that list, and I've done this beforehand, so I'll just paste those colors over. So we've added an orange that's being used in our theme somewhere. We've added a yellow that's being used somewhere, so we can delete the placeholder and put in the actual hex code for that color. And we can do that on all 5 links. And then what we have is this nice theme specific effect that's happening on our header there. Now, because we've attached this to the top menu item, the top menu only affects on desktop. So when we go back down to mobile, that mobile menu is going to behave just as a standard mobile menu should. So that's only going to affect the menu on desktop. As you can see, it does create this really nice effect. The only last thing that I want to do then is I just want this last one on delivery, I want to kind of highlight that as a call to action. So I'm going to very slightly adjust it. So I'm going to put top going to do -70, so it's always down, and I'm going to set the skew to the same as the skew at the endpoint, which is 20 degrees. So transform set that to percent instead of degrees. So you can see that, and then I'm just going to make the color of this one as well always white instead of just on hover. So that's the first of our 2 main menu effects that you're going to see. And as you can see, just with, you know, not very much code at all, we're really differentiating our Divi menu there. When we scroll, those top little kind of hints are going away and it's becoming white. That's staying where it should, and all of the drop downs still work. So that's the first of our designs done. Is there any questions or anything going on?
No questions specifically, but I think we might have our largest audience yet asking, watching live, and maybe they don't know that they can ask questions. So feel free to pop your questions in to the Facebook chat if you're watching us on Facebook Live. If you're watching us on Zoom, go ahead and drop your questions. We have a Q&A feature in Zoom that allows you to ask questions there. I will say that for some reason, comments seem to be going in and out on Facebook Live for some reason. I have to keep refreshing it to see the latest comments and stuff. So if I do miss your questions, please be, patient. I'm going to keep refreshing as we go along. How often?
Yes,
Yeah, go ahead, SJ.
I've got the live feed open on my small screen, and I didn't see any comments or
Yeah,
suggestions at all. So
it's been
yeah,
going.
if there is anything that comes up, then
Yeah, it's been going in and out, and I've noticed it. I just didn't want to interrupt you, and that's okay. Drop them in there still because I'm refreshing. We've got a question from, it looks like Bus, maybe. Let me see here. Business Finish School LLC. Not sure what your name is, but we'll call you Business Finish School LLC. How often are these webinars held? SJ and I try to do them at least once a week. And typically on the same day, Wednesday, because that's a good day for us, because it's kind of the midway point through our work week, and we kind of schedule that out around this time, 2 Central. What is it there where you're at, SJ, in the UK? What time is it? 8 o'clock?
it is 20 past 8. Yes.
Yeah, so they start at 8 o'clock in the UK and 3 o'clock Eastern and 12 o'clock Pacific. Jared asks, how difficult is being as awesome as you are? That
It
obviously
gives you a backache.
It must have been directed to me, right, Jared, that comment?
You get a backache, but apart from that, you don't notice it. It looks like we've got 2 questions in the Zoom. Is that where you're grabbing these?
Actually, no, I had grabbed those out of the comments. Jay Taylor,
Okay.
what about making them all the same width?
So you could set a fixed width if you wanted to. The reason that I haven't set a fixed width is because depending on what the text in the menu item is, ideally you'd want it to adjust so that it was larger if the menu item was larger and it was smaller if the menu item was smaller. If you wanted to set a fixed width, then you would just set a fixed width on the top menu LI element, and then text align center on the link element within that LI.
Hey, SJ, I am seeing a comment on Facebook where you've done good by moving your CSS and jQuery stuff over to the left panel. But now, since you're doing effects in the menu, our images are, covering what you're doing there. So
Okay.
if you could move I think you have the ability to move our video avatars of us to the bottom.
Well, I've moved them on my end, but I just don't think that's affected the video. So what I have done here is I've adjusted my window now so that what you should see happen on the live.
Yeah, that works good. I'm looking at it now on the live feed. That should work good. Elvira, Elvira, can you give us the code to copy? Absolutely, Elvira. We're going to, at the end of the webinar, we always put the code in the comments and we do a recap blog post and post it over on Divi Space as well, so you can get it in either spot.
And I've just dropped the code for that first tutorial into the Facebook comments on the live. So you'll have all of the code there for the first one that we've just gone through.
You know what's amazing is I was wondering if I saw that and I was like, holy cow, where'd that come from? Good job, SJ. All right, you want to keep us moving along, and we'll grab Facebook questions in the next one.
Yeah, so the next one that we're going to do focuses on a more clean layout. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the theme customizer. And when that loads, I'm just going to change the header layout to always having the burger icon on and having the slide in menu. So all I'm going to do is go to header and navigation, header format, and I'm going to change this to slide in, which is going to put our links down here on the right hand side that we can open in a slide in menu. So you can see here that we now have this slide in menu here, okay? So what we're going to focus on now is creating a more unique layout for the slide in menu. So if in our case, you've only got 5 links and not much else going on in there, then it can look a little bit bare. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use CSS Grid to customize this and make this look a little bit better. So the first thing that we're going to do then is we're just going to grab the selector for this area. And we can see here that it's this one that we want to be grabbing. So I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to open up Starbot again. And from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start customizing everything. So the first thing that I'm going to do then is I'm just going to put the background. I'm going to change the background to white on that. And then I am going to change the display to grid. So all that's going to do is it's going to tell us that we're now using CSS Grid, and it's going to help me adjust the elements that sit inside that. So this is the container, or the unorganized list element that we're targeting now. The containing elements will be list items, i.e. li elements. So that's what we're now going to start customizing. So the first thing that I want to do then is I want to make this full height. So I'm just going to put height in there again of 100%. So that's going to fill the entire space. And then I'm going to create some grid template areas. I don't know if anybody caught our CSS Grid and Flexbox webinar, but we did this. We're just going to do it again, and we're going to create some custom areas. So what I want to do is I want to have those 5 links in a 4-piece square, and then a larger link that goes along the bottom underneath them. So I'm going to create the grid template areas, and then I am going to make, just to make this easier, I'm going to make, in fact, let me just close this off for a second to make this easier to see. So the grid template areas will be 3 rows and 2 columns. So we will do, let's do left, and then right. And I'll explain just how this works in a second. We will do that now. So how many links did we have? Let's just adjust that again. So we'll do left, right, and in fact we'll do bottom left, bottom right, and then underneath here we will have bottom, bottom. And so what I'll do now is I'll target the list items themselves. So if we inspect, I'm basically just inspecting on invisible stuff at the moment because I can't see it, but this should help me find it. So we are looking for this item here. So you can see here that the unordered list is what we've used to create the grid, which you can see when we hover over it, you can see the grid there on the screen. And then this li is the elements that sit inside them. So all I'm going to do is, just for now, copy this selector, copy it down, and then just add li to it. And I'm just going to put that in as a background of red, just so I can see it. So there we go. We can see those items now. So you can see here what's happened is we've split our 5 links down into 5 different areas. There are 6 grid spaces available as identified by our template areas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but only 5 links. So what we're going to do is we're going to create, let's first of all give this a grid gap just to make those look a bit prettier. So we're going to give this a grid gap of 5 pixels. And we're going to adjust our padding to 5 pixels as well. There we go. The next thing that we're going to do then is just adjust this size, because if you can just see there, I don't know whether you can see, but the bottom element there is just falling off the end. So our height is just slightly too high. So we're going to delete that, and then we're going to go calc again, and we're going to do 100% this time, but we are going to just keep minusing until we can see the bottom. So minus 10 pixels, it's still slightly off, minus 20, minus 30, and there we go. So now it looks like the bottom is the same as all of the rest of it. So that's the right value. We could potentially go maybe a little bit more. That looks better. So again, what we're going to do now is we are going to create a different color for each of these, just to separate them and get ready for the rest of the code that we're going to do. So we're going to grab this selector here, and we're going to add nth child 1, and you can see there that now that's just applying to this one. So we're going to grab that again, and we're just going to copy it each time like this, and we're going to do the same thing that we did before. So just change this one to orange, this one to yellow, this one to green, this one to blue, and nothing's happening yet because we haven't changed the nth child numbers. So we'll adjust that to 2, take that one to 3, take that one to 4, and the last one to 5. Now we're going to give them some grid template areas. So we're just going to use the grid area property to say that this one should, you'll see they've automatically gone roughly into their grid areas based on just how they would naturally fall. But this bottom one here needs to be adjusted. So if we did grid area bottom, then you could see that that has now filled up that space underneath. So there's some other stuff going on here. We want to probably adjust the colors eventually, and we also want to make sure that the links sit in the center of their various positions. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to target the A element inside these list elements. So again, all I've got to do is copy one of our selectors. And you can see that even though this is creating a lot of CSS, actually we're not writing very much of it. A lot of it's just copying and pasting. And we're just going to target A. And on this, we're going to say display flex. So we've used CSS Grid to create our main template. And now we're going to fine tune it using Flexbox CSS. So we're going to put that in as display flex. We're going to give it a height of 100% because we essentially want to make sure that our link fills that space. So let's have a look at what this does beforehand. Before that's there, all of this area that I'm clicking in is dead area. So to show you what I mean, you can see that this part here is the link. This is all dead area, which is we don't want, because most likely people are just going to click on the box rather than, you know, the exact link, the text. So then we can give this a height of 100%, and then we can justify the content now. So we can say justify content, which is another Flexbox property, and we can just put center. So you can see that's gone into the center now. And we'll just add flex direction column, which is going to let us know how we're using our CSS. And I think the last thing that we need to do is add a text line. There we go. So we've got everything into the middle now. And you can see the colors there coming through from the list items because the black is fading away, as is its custom within Divi. But we're just going to remove that background anyway because we were only doing that so we could see what we were doing. So what's interesting there is you might have seen that before we added the flex direction, the justify content center was moving the link into the center. And then after we added flex direction column, the link didn't move into the center, but it did move into the center here. And that's because before we added flex direction column, Divi Flex was trying to make room for everything to fit on one line. We need to tell it to go downwards, and that's what flex direction column does. So you can see here that we've got this kind of nicer layout here. And what we can then do is we can adjust those colors. So if we go back to our old CSS that we used before, we can just grab those colors and paste those in. So we've just grabbed these colors from the theme, from the layout, and then we're going to use them in our design. And we've used colors as the background here. You could just as easily use background images if you wanted to. So you could have a different image on here. So where's that blue? So let's just do that to show you. Let's use the background of delivery. Let's use a link to an image. So if we use this one, grab that image URL. So you can see it here in the HTML markup. Let's copy that. And then on this last one here, we're just going to change that background to a URL like so. And we're going to pop that in there. And we're going to add some extra stuff. Background size. Cover. So there you can see we've added that now. So if we just copy this into here, and this time add a hover onto there. And then we can do, in fact, what we'll do is we will target the A that sits in front, and then we will do the hover. So hopefully, 1 second, that seems to have frozen. Apologies, guys. Everything just seems to be running just slightly slower at the moment. And so we're gonna take that background out. There we go. So then we can go back up, find our original blue color that we had, make that look a bit nicer. And we're not doing any of this. We're not adjusting any of these things. So we can delete those for the hover. And then there we go. So we have this kind of nice layout there. And you can see that looks loads better. It's much more in keeping with the page design. And because it's CSS Grid, it adjusts sizes like you wouldn't believe. So it's going to look great on every device, including mobile. So that's the end of the second tutorial. So I'll just drop this code now so you guys can play around with it into the comments. I don't know if there's any questions on that one, David.
There is. We have an anonymous attendee on Zoom. They're asking, in the grid template area, why do you need bottom bottom if you want it to span 2 columns?
Okay, that's a good question. So if we look at how we set up our grid template area, what we've essentially done is I'll move it onto 3 lines so it's easier to see. We've created 6 spaces in our grid template. So we've created a left, a right, a bottom left, a bottom right, and then a bottom and a bottom. So if our grid spaces have the same name, then they will create one area. So even though we've created 6 places, the bottom 2 are going to make up 1 place. So we've created 5 spaces. So if we looked at this a different way, so if we did left, left, bottom, bottom, and then bottom right, and put bottom left in here instead, then you would see that now, because these 2 grid areas are the same, they've created 1 long space here instead of along the bottom. So using CSS Grid and the grid template areas, you can actually create endless, what you can do here is really only limited to your imagination. You could be creating entire web pages the way that they're displayed just with CSS Grid. So this is akin to, this is like Bootstrap, but written in pure CSS. So it's very, very powerful stuff. We're really just scratching the surface of it here, but that's why if you want 2 grid areas to span and create 1 grid area, then you just give them the same name in your grid template areas.
Got it. Fantastic. We seem to have quite a few. I am still having issues with Facebook comments, so I'm going to go ahead and refresh them again really quick, and hopefully I'll get some questions before they disappear again. Catherine asked the question, target the A, you mean target the anchor tag?
Yeah, so yeah, the anchor element.
Okay, good. I think that's all she wanted to know was you meaning the anchor tag.
Yeah, so the direct relationship in CSS Grid works between a container and the items inside of it. So if you have list items, LIs, then that would be the container, and the anchor tag inside of it would be the target element. If you're targeting a UL or an unorganized list, then your list items become the target. So all it does is it changes where you add display grid, and then everything inside that becomes a child of that grid element.
Got it. Bjorn, I just want to answer your question on Facebook Live. You can come on over and join the Zoom link and get the 1080p live. I know Facebook quality is not the greatest on the live streaming. We have pinned that Zoom link if you want to join us on Zoom. We do record these also, and we'll upload them in 1080p to YouTube and Vimeo as well. So any streaming platform you'll want. One question, or I guess maybe it was more of a comment than a question. One of the viewers on Facebook, if I remember, I keep having to refresh them, but they basically said it would be great if you could have the desktop menu on desktop and have this on mobile simultaneously, as opposed to using one for the entire thing. Is that, I would think that would be possible, but I'm going to let SJ answer it.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. I know what you mean. So it's nice to have the slide-in menu, but it can look a little bit bare here. What you could potentially do is there's various tutorials out there. There's one on Divi Space that will allow you to create a fake slide-in menu from the standard mobile. So you could use the default menu option and then just make it look like it's a slide-in menu on mobile. Another thing that you could potentially do, and we'll just go through it, is in fact, let's do it on the front end just so we can see it, and then we can copy it in. If we inspect our page and open up the console, we could create our own buttons. Because I know what I think is the issue here is that having this on desktop just seems very bare, having nothing here, having no links at all. So what I'll do here is I will say, we're creating a very simple piece of jQuery here that's going to insert an element before our top navigation. So this has an ID of ET top navigation. So if we just put ET top navigation in here and then created a standard link,
While SJ is typing, are you okay if I talk in the middle of your typing, SJ? Answer a couple of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Manas, we are recording this. It'll be available on YouTube and Vimeo. Yes, we will paste the code into a blog post recap, Simon, and everybody who's watching. Obviously, I'm not the only one having issues with the Facebook comments. It seems to be a Facebook thing. So we will grab the code, post it into the blog post recap, which will be going out on Saturday morning. So wake up bright and early Saturday morning and head to Divi Space.
So what we've done there is we've just used one line of jQuery to create a link, and then we've inserted it before the ET top navigation, which is this item here. But as you can see, the list, the item has gone up here. We could float that right using CSS. We've given it a class, so we could just as easily, let's open Starbot. We could float that right. I'm not going to do that because there's a more fun way. So let's just target that class and say let's take that over there, top. We're going to try and get it down into roughly in line without worrying too much about exacts. And then we can adjust the right to whatever it needs to be. So let's do a bit more than that. So all I'm doing here is I'm just positioning this link.
Does it, just out of curiosity, if I throw other questions at you while you're typing code, will that derail you, SJ?
No, that should be fine.
Browser support for CSS Grid.
So all of the major browsers now support CSS Grid. The last one to cave was Microsoft Edge, and that caved in 2017, sometime mid-time last year. At the moment, they estimate it at over 75% will work, browser support, and all of the major ones do work. Now, with a caveat to that, because CSS Grid is only being used for layout and not for the actual functionality, Even if the CSS grid doesn't take and it just loaded those links, they'd still look better. It would still look nicer in that menu, the way that they were formatted then. So even if the grid part breaks, they still look good. You could take out the display grid in the code that we just created and leave everything else as it was, and you would see how much better it looks than the standard menu. So don't let the fact that it's not 100% compatible with every device put you off using CSS Grid in the first place. So what we've done here is we've used jQuery to create this button, and then we've used a little bit of CSS to style it. Now, as we go down, you can see that the position changes because our menu adjusts, and that doesn't look great. So what we're going to do, we could create two separate styles, one for the fixed header and one for the main header, by prefixing this selector with main header or .et fixed header. But what we'll do instead is we'll adjust the top and we'll create a calculation. So we'll say top calc, and then we'll do fifth. And we could also be using flex to do this as well. But we're just going to keep it simple. We're going to say top calculation 50% minus, let's do 10 pixels to start, and then just adjust as we need to. So 20 pixels looks good there, and it's going to look good even on our larger menu because it's now using a calculation to make sure that it's in the right place. So if you wanted to create a menu, you could just as easily create a menu in jQuery and then add it here, hide the burger menu, and then only show the burger menu on mobile if you wanted to. Or you could leave the burger menu there, and if you've got any CTAs, just go for it. Just add them here. You could add as many things as you wanted to here with jQuery, just the same as we added this link. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers that question.
It does. We've got one more last question before you go on to number 3, SJ. Now, I'm going to add a comment in here because our good friend Kathy Kroll-Romana, who I might get to see in Dallas next week. I hope so. I hope I get to make it up there and have dinner with you guys. She says it's beauteous. I just want you to know that.
I like.
Glenn, asked the question, and could you have it 50% high without the white background in the lower half? I'm again assuming you can do anything you want to do with this because it's very powerful.
Sorry, I didn't actually hear what the question was there.
Glenn asked, and could you have it 50% high without the white background in the lower half?
Are we talking about the styles that we did in this main menu now? When was this?
I'm honestly not knowing where. So Glenn, why don't we'll circle back to it and let Glenn ask the question again. But I think the answer is yes. You can.
The answer is yes. So whichever, once you have set a height for your grid, the grid items will fill the space of that grid. If you wanted to, you could even set the different columns and rows to different heights. So you could have a bunch of small ones and then a big one. It's completely up to you. You can do it in percentages. If you caught the last webinar on CSS Grid, we actually did an example where the columns were different heights. So the code to do that will be in there.
Yeah, you answered it perfectly. And let's see here. That blog post recap is live on Divi.space, the CSS Grid and Flexbox. The actual email is going to go out tomorrow announcing that. So if you're not on our DiviSpace email list, join the email list, and you will, you'll get all of these direct links to these posts and stuff, as well as going to Divi.space. But Glenn said you answered it perfect.
Good stuff. Awesome. The last thing that I want to show you then is a color change effect that we can use using jQuery and the Waypoint JS library. So this is the same library that if you're on the Elegant Themes homepage and you scroll halfway down, you have that expanding section that just gets bigger. So that's what Waypoints does. Waypoints knows when you are at a certain point on your screen, or when an element that's on your screen gets to a certain point, and then it allows you to attach an action to that. So we're going to use, because that library is built into Divi, we're going to use that library to create a cool effect where our header changes colors as we scroll down. So if you can see at the moment, when we scroll down, our header turns white and it stays white the whole way down. What we're going to do is we are going to write some jQuery that's going to allow us to add a class to our main header at certain points in the page, and then remove that class at certain points at the page so that we can style it separately. So all we're going to do here is we're going to go to the console, and the first thing that we're going to do is open up a document ready function. So if you're one of the guys that are off the course and you're watching this, then you should know how to do this by now. Most of you got this, picked up an error in the test questions, so we know that you're paying attention at least. If we do jQuery document ready, open up a function, and we're just going to close off. In fact, look, you can see there that because I've used this one before, it added it automatically for me, but just for the sake of this, we'll delete that so we can see how we're actually doing it. Yeah, so we're opening up a document ready function, and then in here we're just putting the shorthand jQuery sign in there so that we can now, instead of writing jQuery every time, we can just use the $sign. And in here we are going to create a waypoint function. So we are going to say, let's just make this easier. I'll just do the function part first, and then we'll add in the selectors. Oh, sorry. I didn't press shift and it's ran my code. So let me just refresh the page. In fact, we're fairly short on time. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste this function in, and then I can talk to how it works. If you find yourself using functions a lot and using the same jQuery for different things, then it's worth just having it saved into a snippets file so that you can quickly grab it and save yourself some time. So all I'm going to do is I've got this already saved on my computer, so I'll just paste this in and then I can talk to it. So what we've got here then is a jQuery document ready function that's been opened and closed, and inside here, two waypoint functions. So they are targeting using pseudo classes and elements, which you can also do in jQuery. It's not just in CSS. They target the ETPB section, which is the class that is added to each and every section that you load onto a Divi page. And in the top one, we're just targeting the odd sections. And in the bottom one, we are just targeting the even sections. So on the odd sections, we're adding a class of dark. And on the even sections, we're then removing that class. So if we run this code and take a look at what that actually does, it's going to add and remove the class on our main header. So let's look at our main header, which is here. You can see here already that when we scroll down ever so slightly, it's adding a class here of ET fixed header. That's how Divi styles the fixed header at the top. Now, as we scroll down a little bit more, you can see there that the class dark is being added at certain points and taking away at certain points. Those are the points where we are swapping between section and section. So as soon as one section goes in the top, the class is added. As soon as the section goes away, it's removed. So what we can do here then with that information is we can say, in CSS, main header ET fixed header, dark, background, black, and add that to our code. Now what happens here is when we scroll, what should be happening here, let's have a look at our code. Typo in the code.
Yeah, I was going to say you misspelled header.
I also think there's just a lag on my computer today. I think it's because the same reason that half of our comments on Facebook are disappearing. I just think there's some issues going on here. Yeah, so that's just frozen.
You're welcome, Bjorn.
Let's give it a second. Yeah, page unresponsive. Wait, there we go. So as we scroll down now, I think I might have to pop in our jQuery again because it hasn't saved.
Arlene says background also misspelled, so not sure if that's...
Good catch, Arlene. Thank you.
Awesome.
There we go.
Between Jeff and Arlene, keeping our grammatical errors to a minimum.
Okay, so there you can see that works now. So at certain points, it will go black. And then as we swap into different sections, it will go back to white and then black again. So on each even section, it's turning one color, and on each odd section, it's turning another color. And that's because the class dark is being added and removed as we scroll down the page. So if you think about how you would normally structure a page, you would normally create your sections as a light section and then a dark section and then a light section and then a dark section. But as you scroll over, your menu will get washed out on the light sections or the dark sections depending on what color it is. Now what you can do is by using this code, you can create some really classy, in fact, let's just, yeah, we won't do that because the links are different. But you could even say, so let's look at this color here. If we look at what's giving this burger menu its color, you can see here that it's mobile menu before. So here's another thing that's quite cool in Spect Element. Oftentimes, a color or a property is being attached to loads of different items. So it can be hard to tell which one's which, but your item that you're highlighting or inspecting will always be darker than the others. So you don't need all of this code just to change the color of this. All you need is this one. So we're going to grab that, copy it, chuck that in after our current selector. And then here, let's remove this dark class and swap these around. So now, using that style, you've got the white on black. And then as you scroll down, you've got the black on white and the white on black and the black on white. So it's a really unique way of creating a menu item or a menu that reacts to the content that's on the page. So I see that popping up in the groups a lot. Kind of, how can you create something that adjusts to the colors or the sections on the page? That's one way of doing it.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'll drop the jQuery and the CSS for that into the comments as well. But hopefully that's quite helpful. That'll help you create some unique designs with those three tips.
Go ahead and drop the third code now, SJ, and drop it to me in Slack as well, real quick, because I have a special surprise for all of the live viewers. The blog, as soon as I get this code right now, we are going to hit publish on the blog, divi.space.
And that, guys, is what happens when your content creator is in the same room.
That's what happens when your content creator's in the same room. That's right. I will let you know that we will have to do some post-production on the video, record. We will have that uploaded tonight to YouTube. Well, it'll be in the blog post by tomorrow, added to YouTube and stuff. So, boom. We will still also put it on our Facebook, email list and stuff still on Saturday. Kathy asked a question: where do you put the jQuery code in the Divi site? Is it in the Divi panel where you put your Google Analytics code, etc.?
So there are two places that you can put those things. You can either put them into script tags and add them under the integrations tab in the head, as mentioned, or if you have a child theme set up, then you can add them to the custom JS file within your child theme. Ideally, you'd want your child theme set up. If you're only using little tidbits of JS and not using too much, then you can just as easily add it under a script in the integrations tab.
I do want to say this before we have a couple of other questions that are very good, by the way, before I answer Simon's question. SJ has alluded to, of course, the CSS and jQuery course a couple of times in this video. We do have a lot of students watching. We want to say thank you. We've gotten tremendous positive feedback from the Transforming Divi with CSS and jQuery course. If that is something that you're interested in, head on over to divi.space. It is a 4-week-long course that goes in depth into CSS and jQuery, and basically all of this stuff that SJ is teaching you, you're going to be able to do for yourself with the master himself. We've got a private Facebook group. The community has been just pretty dang awesome, actually, already. I mean, I've been loving the Facebook group, even though I'm not the tech person doing the course with everybody. I've gone through it and I review it and stuff, but I really love the engagement and the positive, energy and stuff that's going on in the course, and all of the great feedback from the students and stuff. So head on over to Divi Space. You can find it there. Simon asked a question: could you have different colors for each section?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we have a look at, let me just inspect again, and I'll just drop the code so we can see what we're talking about. This is the code that we used. So we're targeting sections that are odd and sections that are even. And then we are adjusting the main header to add the class dark and remove the class dark. You could just as easily have, instead of having odd, you could have nth child 1, and then that would target the first section. And nth child 2 would target the second section, and so on. And then instead of adding the class dark, you could add the class blue or green. And then in your CSS, instead of using the class dark, you could target blue like that, and you could make the background color blue, and then you could target green and make the background color green, and then and so on and so on and so on, and you could just keep going. And you could do that as much as you wanted to using nth childs, or even go as far as to change the target element. So when you get to a certain point, the header turns black. When you get to a certain point further down, the link turns to a different color. You know, the possibilities really are endless on that one.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Fantastic. I think that absolutely wraps up all the questions. Oh, hold on a second. Jay Taylor asks, what about using hex codes? Also, before you answer that, SJ, I've dropped the link to the blog post in the Facebook Live feed. I'm going to drop it in the Zoom webinar chat panel as well. And then you can head over to Divi Space and get it. So there you go. And you remember the question? What about using hex codes?
Yeah, so when we're talking about adding blue and red and orange there, like we did, those are class names. So you're going to want to actually add the word for the class. The color that you attach to that class is completely up to you. If you wanted to add a hex code, an RGB, an actual color in, you know, however you wanted to do it, it's completely up to you, but all of them would work.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, SJ, can I use awesome a third time? Awesome job, man. This has been great. We've gotten a lot of really good positive feedback. And I think we've had our most viewership to date yet on webinars. So I think consistently, at least from what I was seeing, we had about 50 people that were watching the entire time, and even people that stayed with us through the end and stuff for the questions. Thanks everybody for tuning in for another webinar. We've got a couple more coming up. We'll definitely have one next Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Seems to be our normal, you know, time, 2 o'clock CDT. That would be 8 at night, or as they say in the UK, 2000 hours. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you guys. Look, I just saw an angry face. They must be sad we're leaving, SJ. All right, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you to everybody for coming and watching, and I hope that you're able to take that away and do some fun stuff.
Awesome. Thanks so much. All right, SJ, see you in a minute. Bye-bye, everybody.